Welcome to Richmond Kickers Weekly. My name is Darryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who's waving goodbye to Braeden Troyer. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. Is that how it works? We're taking him to a field upstate or something like that?
He's just gone
a farm upstate?
He's gone to a better place.
Okay.
Yeah. He'll be happy there.
It is weird. It's Braeden Troyer retirement was the final game of the season.
I feel like the Kickers might fold. Braeden Troyer. What if he was holding the whole thing up? You know, some people like remove a wall in their house and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to open it up, make the kitchen bigger.
Yeah.
Why is my house collapsed?
He was the load-bearing wall with Braeden Troyer?
Yes.
I mean, at times he was this season as the holding midfielder, yeah.
He was the load-bearing defensive midfielder.
There we go.
Right? So wonderfully, Braeden Troyer ends his career, his Richmond Kickers career and his soccer career with a win. Richmond Kickers 2, Orlando City B 0. Troyer was captain. He was holding midfielder. He was subbed off right towards the end so that he could get a big ovation at City Stadium.
He was the holding midfielder. He was also held in the arms of Elliot Barr, co-host of River City 93 podcast. We're going to be doing a kind of season review with them next week.
Yes.
But I was looking at when we went back and watched some of the game, we saw when Connor Shinosky, the kicker center back, scored.
Yeah,
they were all kind of celebrating near the corner flag, and in the background you can see Braeden Troyer communicating to the Red Army, I want to jump up there, and then he jumps up, and I'm pretty sure it was Elliot he landed on.
Troyer also hit the bar in the first minute or two, and I really for a second thought, all right, we're going to get a Braeden goodbye goal.
Do you ever wonder if
we didn't? Well, at least he got to jump in the crowd.
But if you come out on your retirement game and score a hat trick and just play lights out and beat everybody, I wonder if there is that moment of well, should I be retiring? I guess that's how you explain athletes retiring for sure and then coming back out a year later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm sure Braeden Troyer's thought long and hard about when to retire and what to do.
That checks out.
Yeah.
That checks out.
All right, so let's talk about the two goals. Two goals, first in the 31st and I'm going to guess 35th minute.
36, I think.
Oh, it's so close.
You did your best, though.
31st and 36th minute. Braeden Troyer and Charles... Sorry, I gave him a goal.
I just give it to him, whatever.
Connor Shinosky and Charles Boateng.
Yep.
Let's talk about that Shinosky header.
All right.
Good header, near post. Herrera in the Orlando City B goal maybe should have got down to it.
I mean, 100% should have gotten down to it.
My working theory is he's 6'7", too tall to get that low that quick.
Yeah, and I think also maybe thought he was closer to the post because just the way he kind of awkwardly slides over once the ball is already in the net, it seemed like he thought maybe I'm hugging that post for this ball to come in and wasn't quite as close as he thought he was.
Yeah.
Couldn't get a foot to it. So it's 1-0. But to your point, it's a great header from Connor Shinosky. It's, I would argue, better delivery from Matai Mwape, who takes this free kick because it's maybe, 20 yards from goal. It's slightly
shooting
left
distance,
of center.
Right? We were both really confused when they lined up. Is he not going to shoot this?
It's a slightly strange angle, and it does seem like it invites a right-footed free kick taker. So maybe if they've just said it's going to be Mwape, it's going to be Mwape. But I do think the way he takes this free kick is almost similar to the way you would take a kick if you were hitting it on goal.
Yeah,
he hits
it's like he was shooting towards the Red Army.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, exactly. I feel like both of the assists he get were maybe possibly shots. Here, maybe less so. But it's a kind of low-ish, driven but still bending away from goal ball, so the goalkeeper's never going to be able to get it, but it's put on the head of Connor Shinosky with enough power behind it that if Shinosky just directs it on goal, it's probably going to go in.
Yeah, this wasn't a lot of Shinosky neck muscle, right? Most of the pace on the ball was from the Mwape cross, and it's just a clever or technically really good Shinosky redirect. Yeah. I don't mean technically as a qualifier, I mean as in good technique.
I understood, but I appreciate the clarification. So it's 1-0 to the Kickers, and that right there was a good opportunistic goal. Yeah. The second goal as well, I would say the Kickers took advantage of maybe Orlando City B not quite being as defensively solid, which has been a recurring theme for them this season. A lot of standing off, a lot of indecision. Mwape ends up kind of dribbling wide. I'm going to say it's a cross because I'll give him credit for both, but it's a driven cross that sort of looks like it's meant to be a shot, but instead it finds Charles Boateng, who slides in, puts it home, 2-0 Kickers.
And Boateng was really cleverly sort of getting on the blind side of left centre-back Braeden John. This is number 4. He's sort of always out of his field of vision, right? So that he can just, at the very last second, as Mwape sends in that, I'm going to call it a low cross, possibly shot. He can sneak in behind. Braeden John's appealing for offside, but Boateng's never, ever offside.
No, he's not. And that's
he's maybe more appealing for, it's cheating, I couldn't see him.
Yeah, that could be. There we are. That's not fair. But I would add, like, there are things in like the course of the shows that we do where it becomes a thing that you and I both like agree on. It's an idea or a concept that we both kind of believe in.
Yeah.
One of those this season has
Josh
been
Sargent starting for the men's national team.
Exactly. But yet every now and then, though, like, I would probably give you the credit there of, like, you're probably the one between the two of us who first was saying Josh Sargent should start. He should be a starting striker for the U.S. And I would say that of the two of us, you were the one who I think pretty early on in the season was like, I like this Charles Boateng guy.
Yes.
He should be involved more often. And I think we see the reason why you were correct.
I just think compared to Jackson and Chin, Boateng looks more lively.
Yep.
You see him more like come back, quick touch, layoff, and then dart in behind. Whereas Chin or Jackson, I would see maybe come back, layoff, but then more, I would use the word amble. Just basically everything is done a little slower. Boateng does things a lot faster and takes people by surprise.
I agree with everything you said, because when he's just playing quick connective passes, he does that fast. But even when he dribbles, like if Chin does that, if Jackson does that, it's a few more touches. Even the aforementioned Braeden Troyer, it's a few more touches. It's a little bit less in control. Boateng, when he's controlling tight, he has two defenders on him. He still takes little touches. He still keeps causing problems and kind of routinely found a teammate because he'd pull a defender in, pull another defender in, and so somebody was open. But even then was just playing so quickly and getting so many little touches in that regardless...
It settles the opposition defense more so, right?
Yeah. And I thought he was very exciting. I thought his link up with Mwape and back and forth was one of the more attacking combinations we've seen, more exciting
combinations.
Definitely
The little guys teaming up.
And then Nick Retzlaff, who's I think another one that you were sort of excited about pretty early on in the season.
And that's not with really any evidence except for like the one cup game we saw maybe. But what we saw from Nick Retzlaff in this game... I thought he looked really clean and smooth and a lot of incisive passes and some good couple of little touches into space. And also just that thing that you and I both love of receiving the ball. You know, that move where you don't touch the ball, but you turn as you receive it and take it with you. It's like it's so fast and so clean and gets you away from people so quickly. We saw all that from Nick Retzlaff in this game.
We did, and I want to double down on that one for a moment because so often people will try to do that where it's like if Daryl is facing me right now, if he passes me the ball and I like let it run through my legs and then turn and go and try to get it. So often that is a person not necessarily being aware of how far away the defender is, so that if you do that, then it becomes like a 50-50 ball sometimes. That's not what you want. And it was telling to me that Retzlaff at times would slow it down, at times would play it backwards, but when he went for that sort of quick transition that you're talking about, it was pretty much every single time that I recall the correct decision. He had the space, he had the time.
Space behind him, which tells us he's doing the thing you're supposed to do, the thing Xavi did so well, the thing Scholes did so well. Scanning. Check your shoulder, check the other side, look around, have a 360-degree picture of the entire field. Maybe I'm giving Retzlaff too much credit, but we definitely saw it in those moments. And it does make me wonder, why didn't he play more games throughout the season?
That's a fair question. I think a fair response would be to remember that this is the team that the Kickers finished second bottom in the league. This is the team that was bottom of the league.
Orlando City B.
So there's also a chance that maybe Orlando City B made the Kickers' lives a little bit easier. Were maybe already defeated on the road, final game of the season. Maybe they weren't quite as up for it as they would have been if this were the first game of the season.
Yeah. I mean, so maybe you and I could have played against Orlando City B.
Maybe you.
For 2 minutes.
I would have gotten all dribbly. It wouldn't have worked out well.
We love it when you dribble.
Yeah.
All right, so it finishes Kickers 2, Orlando City B 0. Like you said, Kickers finish second bottom in the table. Anything else you want to talk about this game specifically before we move on to the big news that arrived in our inboxes at around 4 o'clock on Wednesday?
Just that, like, it's sort of representative for me of the season that it finishes with, like, it's a good win, but I still, in the end, find it frustrating because, number one, I don't know if it was the Kickers playing really, really well or Orlando City B being that bad. Probably some combination of the two.
Yeah.
But it's like this game, when we saw so many positive things, is against the worst team in the league. And so I don't know if that's like, okay, they were kind of finally putting it together and it was a good performance and they could have done this the whole year, or if it was just like, no, like Orlando City B were kind of done. It's Braeden Troyer's last game.
So we only do this against purple teams.
Yeah, exactly. We need Louisville City to drop down and then we'll get one more win.
This version of the Kickers would not have done well against Louisville City.
No, and with that in mind, as you said, second bottom, 32 points from 28 games, second fewest goals in the league, mid-table-ish when it comes to goals allowed, but I think that's not surprising that we saw lots of 0-0s, 1-0 losses, good defensive record mostly for the Kickers, less so when it comes to the attacks, which is another reason why this game was exciting but also frustrating.
Yep, and then the news I was referring to, Wednesday about 4 o'clock, Kickers part ways with David Bulow. So head coach David Bulow, from what I understood from the release, his contract was through the end of the year, and essentially it hasn't been renewed.
Right.
So not really fired, right? Just not renewed.
Right.
So David Bulow will not be back as head coach next season.
He will not. And it's I was somewhere mixed on this one of like I thought that this might be the outcome. I wasn't necessarily sure. I didn't know if the Kickers were going to kind of – I'm assuming there have been lots of conversations throughout the season about like performance incentives and what needs to happen. It happened fairly quickly in terms of the end of the season. And for you and me, I think we were a bit more like, I guess that makes sense. Second bottom, not always playing the most attacking soccer, not scoring as many goals as you probably need to continue to get big attendances. For people who I think are more hardcore diehard fans, this seemed like a very big blow. And that's – I don't know if we want to talk about that now or we're going to have the crossover episode next week with
I think we'll talk about it both times.
All right, that makes sense.
So, yeah, next week we'll be talking with the River City 93 guys, Elliot and Chenier. And so they're also part of the Red Army, the big Kickers supporters group. From what I've heard from people in the Red Army, they're very upset about David Bulow being let go. They were all in on Coach Bulow, which honestly, when I heard some of what they had to say, I found kind of surprising just that a coach can be so popular with the hardcore supporter group after a season when you finished second bottom in a league where we expected to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I can't imagine another situation where this would happen. I think a lot of it speaks to, honestly, we've met David several times and talked to him several times. He's a really just wonderful, charming, energetic guy who always has something interesting to say, very generous with his time and with his praise.
Yep.
Like, I can understand really, really liking him, like personally, and wanting him to succeed. But at the same time, second bottom.
Yeah. So pausing on the second bottom
on a
for
results-driven thing. Second bottom's the big deal.
That's the difference there, is I think for a very long time, this will probably not make sense to many people who aren't familiar with the Kickers or the kind of the history of the Kickers, but in my mind, since their founding in, 93, the Kickers have been a very community-oriented team. There's been a lot of consistency. There hasn't been much change in terms of ownership until recently. Lee Calishaw played for, I think, that inaugural team or thereabouts, became the coach, and the GM was there for a very long time.
It was over a decade Calishaw was coach,
and
right?
so it's a sort of Richmond institution that doesn't change that much, has had lots of success at times, has been less successful at other times, but it sort of is more of a like community like event rather than a competitive sports franchise.
So you're saying that because David Bulow felt like part of the community, like he would go to the Red Army sort of tailgate and thank the fans. He was very appreciative.
But was on the field the last time they won a championship as a player.
Of
worth
course,
noting, like
so
has that connection too.
He's part of the history of the team, right? Yeah. So it feels weird. It just feels weird to be like, I know he wasn't fired, but it feels weird to be severing ties with people. Yeah. It's not traditionally what the Kickers do.
It is not. And I think that is what you're seeing, in my opinion. We haven't talked to many people from the Red Army. They may very well disagree. Maybe I'm being overly like academic and thoughtful on this. But like, I think it's cutting ties with perceived tradition is sort of what we're seeing from that reaction of like things are being changed that haven't been the way they were in the past, just from like game day operations, game day management. But then, like Bulow going to the tailgates, supporting the Red Army, always being appreciative of what they bring. There's this feeling of like, okay, now this is changing, now that is changing, now we're getting rid of the coach, we're dropping down a league.
And then there was a new ownership group took over just before this season, right? I can understand from their perspective, you have a coach. You finish second bottom. The coach had, David Bulow was in here expressing the way he wanted the Kickers to play was this heavy possession, almost Guardiola or Berhalter-ish style. And that just didn't produce goals, right? It didn't produce wins. So if you're the new ownership group, do you just keep going with that? Or do you say, all right, it didn't work, we have to change course? I understand from a new ownership group perspective why you would want to change course.
I do too. And again,
there's not enough evidence throughout the season that it was getting so much better, so progressively. Like, it's not like how De Boer did a similar thing, right? Atlanta wanted to play the same Dutch style, started horribly at Atlanta. I think they ended up finishing second in the East, right? Like, they really turned it around. Right. So we can't say that the Kickers did the same thing this season.
No, obviously they didn't. But I think that's where I feel the need to say, like, we've had David Bulow in studio. He's been very generous with his time and helping us understand
we just
some
like
things.
Him, right?
And we like him. So I'm not like I am sad to see him go, but to your point, I do understand it, is that the results, there was not the turnaround you want to see. There was not the reaction of like mid-season, we're going to change things up, we're going to bring in new players. We kind of kept seeing similar faces rotated in that maybe we didn't feel like we're playing as quickly or fit the system as well. And so if you don't have that growth in a league that is in its inaugural season, and I feel like people use that as a defense of like it's a new team, it's a new league, you've got to give the coach time. That's where I don't really buy in because
that's true for Madison.
That's true for everyone,
for
literally
Lansing.
every team.
Yeah.
Like it's well, I guess like Toronto too existed, but like they existed in a different capacity, but also they're a reserve team, whatever, it doesn't matter. But like the teams that are new coming in, like they found a way. Look at Ford Madison, to your point, is a team who started very low in the table, stayed very low in the table, figured things out, adjusted what they were doing, and then ended up making the playoffs.
Yeah,
like that's what you want to do, is you want to turn it on and find that form. And I think for the Kickers, they didn't reach that level. And I'm going to assume that there were other elements behind the scenes that we aren't privy to, but that factors into the decision making as well.
I mean, I think it's also fair to say it's probably not all David Bulow's fault, right? I think
no, certainly
you could probably ask questions about how the roster was built. Was there a high enough quality of player?
I would ask that question.
Like in relation to the opposition. There's lots of other things that go into it. It's never just one man's fault, right? But unfortunately, that's the nature of soccer. That's just how soccer works, right? If results are going badly, the easiest person to replace and hope that it changes something is the head coach, right? It's just why it happens. So in some ways, this is the Kickers almost being more like a normal professional soccer team in that, okay, that's not working. Let's get rid of the coach and get someone new in. It's just the normal way that teams do business in soccer.
Right. Because it's not as though the new ownership
From the
group...
outside, this is not a shock at all, right? If you were just completely unconnected and you just looked at the table, looked at what happened, you'd be like, I guess that's how it goes.
Exactly. And it's not as though the new ownership group came in, like built the roster and then hired David Bulow. Like David Bulow predates the new ownership group.
By half a season, right?
And so you have to assume then that he was at least somewhat involved in the construction of the roster or had some input.
Yeah.
It wasn't as though he was thrown into this with no preseason and here's a bunch of guys, figure it out as best you can. So I think that like simultaneously it's difficult to have a whole bunch of guys and try to get everybody on the same page. But that's a thing that every coach in this league had to deal with, and so while I don't put that entirely on him, he certainly shoulders some of the responsibility. So too do other people in the organization, though. And if it continues to be a downward slide, and that has been what it's been for 3 seasons now?
It's been a rough 3 years as a Kickers fan. Yeah.
So if that continues, then you probably do have to look elsewhere for ways to change it up and improve from top to bottom.
All right. So my final thoughts on David Bulow. Obviously, won't be back with the Kickers next season. So he's still young, right? He's like 38, 39. He's a young, energetic coach with a lot of ideas and like he seems like one of those lifelong learner type people. I genuinely think he'll still have a good coaching career somewhere. It may just be that when we look back, it was maybe he was too inexperienced to be the head coach of the Richmond Kickers at this time.
Yeah.
I've got faith that his career will still go well.
I mean, this is his first pro job, right?
Yes.
So, I think there's a decent chance we see him in an assistant capacity next season, or maybe he works like with an academy for a little while, but I agree entirely.
Do you remember he was in here and he was saying like some of the other jobs he was looking at before were like some development academy jobs.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if he said the team's on record or not, which is why I kept it vague.
That's why
exactly. I didn't say. But yeah, my assumption is that we will see him again, if not like certainly in this league or maybe a little bit higher. But I think we see David Bulow in coaching again in the near future is my guess.
And then for the Kickers,
and I hope that's the case.
I guess the somewhat exciting thing now is we have a coaching search.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Let's hope it's exciting because what I would say. Okay, I'm comfortable saying this. I think we've talked about like the tradition of the Kickers over the years and everything they've built. Yeah. And the new ownership group has come in, but they do have connections to the way the Kickers have been in the past. They have some familiarity there, a lot of familiarity there. And it seems like they've kind of tried to continue some of the operations of the past, but with a like for-profit mentality, which is what you are when you're a business.
Yeah.
And I would like to see them kind of steer away from that, much as that might upset the Red Army, but I would like to see them think about things a little bit differently than the way they've been in the past. And what will frustrate me is if we see another former player
less of the old school Kickers thing and more of a like...
Yeah, I think you've got to do one or the other. You can't. They can't go for another former player who's coaching at an academy who's a cost-effective solution and then expect things to change. Like if you really want to put butts in the seats and get people excited, you've got to go out and find somebody who is going to appeal to the Red Army fans and the neutral fans alike.
All right. Here's I'm going to throw out Julian Nagelsmann.
I mean, that would be fine. That would be fine with me. I would have no qualms about that one.
So I said that joking, obviously. We can't get the RB Leipzig coach. He's probably doing quite well at RB Leipzig, but I would kind of like, only because we've never seen it at City Stadium before, a coach that's all into high pressing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really think high pressing is the way to go in USL League One, because from what I've seen, all the opposition the Kickers play against, most of the defenders aren't brilliant at playing out of the back, right? So I think there's opportunities to put pressure on defenders when they're in possession and win the ball high up the field. But we've never, the Kickers under Cowlishaw didn't do it. Kickers under David Bulow were more focused on their own possession rather than pressing and quick transitions. I would love to see like a high energy, press high, win it back, quick transition kind of style.
Yeah, I don't know who that would be.
Well, we don't know. We don't
idea.
know enough about the coaching landscape at this level of soccer that I could easily recommend someone. Right?
I was thinking like I know he's probably out of the salary range, but James O'Connor, who was just released by Orlando City, the MLS squad before that with Louisville City, where he had lots of success. But I would then realize that Louisville City were a team that probably had more money in USL.
Yeah.
So what I want, to your point, is like a coach who had the pressing system, this exciting style of play on like a limited budget, and then maybe went to a club where there was more money, got sacked, and now is looking for a job that will allow him to kind of scrap with a high press, intense system. That's what I want.
Here's my other argument for the high press.
I don't know who that is.
If you just want to entertain the crowd at City Stadium, right? Like, with all due respect to most soccer fans that are coming to see the Kickers, they're not into like nerdy tactical stuff like we are, right? And so I would argue that maybe the style that Bulow was trying to play, this possession type style, if you don't understand that that's what the team's trying to do, it can look not that exciting.
Right.
It can just look like slow. It can look like the Simpsons joke about soccer where they're just passing it sideways and there's no action, right? Rodriguez, right? But a high pressing, like fast moving style, the crowd doesn't have to understand that tactically, but they'll know that like basically fast things are happening. There's just more action with that. So that may be a crowd pleaser, and it may be successful in terms of scoreline.
And it's worth noting...
I'm making a pitch here for what I want the team to do.
I'm going to back this pitch up. Yeah. It's worth noting that this...
And change the name to the Richmond Pressers.
that I'm not as big of a fan of, but it's worth noting this ownership group is like the core members of the Davidson team that made the Final Four.
Yes.
The other team in Richmond that once made the Final Four is the VCU basketball team.
Yeah.
Implementing
get Jerry Rodriguez.
the Havoc system, which is you can't do because it's trademarked, I believe.
Yeah.
But like that is like full court, high press intensity from the start that people fell in love with.
So that could be a Richmond tradition.
That's what I'm saying. Is like if I talk about pressing,
can we get Shaka Smart to coach the Kickers?
I don't think he's doing that well in Texas, so maybe. I think he's still in Texas. But like when I explain what a high press system is to my wife, she does not really. She's like, okay, so you run around a lot. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. But if I'm like, they play a Havoc system, she's like, oh, okay, now I get you. Like,
so you're saying it would be easy to communicate?
Yes,
to
it's like Havoc is back at City Stadium. Done.
You'd have to like spell it with like an extra letter.
With a Q.
With a K for Kickers.
Yeah, there we go. That's it. You've done it right there.
Havoc with a K.
Havoc with a K is back. I feel like we've just kind of made their lives easier. You're welcome. Go hire a pressing coach.
All right. So obviously we're excited.
There's got to be a Klopp assistant somewhere that needs a job.
We're excited to see what happens. We've got one more Richmond Kickers Weekly show coming up, I assume, next week. Like I said, it's going to be the crossover episode with Elliot and Shania from River City 93. We will be taking questions. If you have questions about the season just gone and the season to come, and everything in between, email those questions, please, to contact@totalsoccershow.com, and we'll keep an eye out for them. Maybe put in the subject line Kickers questions so that we can organise these and keep things somewhat, because our inbox is crazy.
A little bit.
But also maybe we'll put this out on Twitter as well and ask for questions, and we'll break with tradition and we'll accept questions in the replies to the Twitter.
We'll see.
We'll
Maybe
see.
we will. Depends on how good they are.
See. So look for that next week.
If there's a horse-sized duck question in there, I'm not answering.
We're all arranged with Elliot and Shania, right? I'm not just saying that this is happening without us having this planned.
I guess we'll find out.
I'm pretty sure it's...
Show up Monday. We'll see what happens.
It's Monday. Okay, so we're recording it Monday.
Or is it?
Oh,
yes, it's Monday.
It is. All right. So we'll all been out of the loop a little bit, right?
Or is it?
Yeah. Oh, Taylor Rockwell. On that note...
2 more shows to go today, buddy.
Yeah, I'm going to say thank you for 99% of the show, not just that last bit. Let's have the Red Army play us out.
It's Monday.